baby's crying. So I think I should be able to get through this video with the little guy. Okay? So going through Instagram, and there was a video that was posted by Justina Valentine about one of the guys out there making a statement, doing his spoken word poetry. And nothing against Justina. I think she's a, good artist, and she's trying to do her thing, and her heart's in the right place, and she's trying to do the right thing. The unfortunate thing about people who try to do the right thing is that they don't always have the best information. Some people are even more nefarious than that, and they believe that they're helping by doing other things that have terrible, terrible, terrible consequences. Terrible consequences, particularly for the community of the blacks in America. So that's basically, I just took down a couple of notes, jotted down a couple of things. There's probably about 10 points in his two-ish minute video that he's talking about. And one thing that he brought up that I think needs to be answered is, why is the black man dying at the rate of an endangered species? That's a very valid question. It's a very, very valid question. The reasons that the progressives say, and like the AOC types, the Joe Biden types, the I think I said AOC, what's that fool's name? Bernie Sanders types, the elite people such as college professors and other different types of woke individuals say is because of racism. And they're correct. But where the racism is coming from is where they are incorrect. The racism is actually coming from these different progressive ideas. These progressive ideas enslave black people, and I'll give you the reasons why. But I thought it was a very good question that he posed. Then he goes on and he says, "We have the land of the free to lock up and cage our morality." Another very good point. Again, not where he thinks it's coming from. There's one party, and there's one party who has historically been on the side of enslavement, and it's not the one that you think it is. So we'll get to that here in a minute too as well. A black life cannot be taken without someone being held accountable. This is the most important thing, period, that this young man had to say. This is 100% true, and that's why we in the black community, in the poor communities, in the ghettos, in every single place where there are minorities and something happens, we need to ensure that justice is done. Black on black crime continues only because it's not reported. As you have detectives in there trying to do good by the community, and they're frustrated because they can't help people. And they can't help people because there's no one coming up and snitching. Well, someone died. The street justice is no justice at all. So let's not do that, okay? Let's not pretend that it is. Let's not pretend that it's cool. Let's not pretend that if certain people were put up against a situation that they wouldn't rat. If someone killed my brother and I know who it is, then I'm saying, hey, this guy, he killed my brother. And then we'll get justice. And then he'll go to prison. And then a bunch of awful things will happen to him. All right. Me going off and killing him isn't going to do right by nobody. All right. So let's not do that. All right. Here's the next thing that he says. And I agree with him now. What about black on black crime? Blacks kill more blacks than anybody. And the facts support that. That's fine. So, okay, fine. As Elizabeth said, fine. But that's when you're trying to rationalize someone who has been traumatized. So when does the cycle stop is the question. All right. Blacks are being poor people, black people, people in Brazil, people in Russia, people in every single society out there, people in Israel and Palestine and Iran and Venezuela and Cuba. All of these people have been traumatized. When do we stop the cycle? When do we stop the cycle? At some point, we have to take personal accountability for our own actions. All right. And we have to say, I'm going to break the cycle. That's what it basically comes down to. I'm going to do it. We are all individuals. We as the Black community must come together as individuals. We are individuals, and we as individuals will stop the killings. We'll stop the unaccountability in our communities for Black lives being taken. We have to stop it. We have to do it ourselves. All right. See here. This is the thing that I think is the most ridiculous. They have to endure more than someone who goes to war. Now, I've been in areas of conflict. I've never actually been in actual engagement, but I've been in hostile territory. So I've never really experienced like an actual foreign war and bullets zipping at me and stuff like that. But I can tell you that I have been in an area for a period of like 4 months or so where the hostility was high. All right. I'd much rather deal with the hostility here in America than be dealing with the hostility overseas. It's bad in some areas, man. And they're right. It's terrible. But the thing that we have to realize is there's no thing. The thing that we have to realize is that it's not those countries and it's not actual war. What we're dealing with right now is unrest and untrained, some poorly trained police officers. All the way, we're not just talking about gun safety training. We're talking about conflict resolution. We're talking about mental health management. We're talking about stress management. We're talking about conflict resolution management. We're talking about gun safety. We're talking about running through simulation after simulation after simulation to train and heighten the senses and sharpen the skills of being in a situation that is hostile and being able to see and control and make the right decisions when those right decisions matter. Police station after police station after police station talks about how they do not have the amount of funding that they need to get the training that they need. So they're under personneled and they're undertrained. There are a few police officers and a few agencies that are doing their best to work with other companies like security companies to help run them through the safety courses and the simulations and the health management and different things like that. But it's not enough. We need it in every single police department. Training is this huge. It's not a simple answer. It's not a simple answer at all. All right. So to compare what I'm going through, or even people in ghettos, I mean, yeah, man, it's rough areas, but some of that stuff is community imposed. The community is not able to stand up. And why aren't they able to stand up for themselves? It's because they have been given bad information. We'll go over that here in a second. Let's see. Here it is. If we don't find these kids no help or find them food, they're going to find a way to get it then. So they're going to find it on their way. So the best way to do that is not education, is not recreation, it's not improving yourself. It's not any of those things. It's by dealing drugs and joining a gang. And this is another thing. This is a strategic, systemic, racist system that has been set up. And we'll go over that in a second. I'm just pre-staging. That has been set up to ensure that these situations happen, and ensure that these people are in single-parent homes, that poor people are in single-parent homes, and they stay poor, they stay enslaved. All right. I think that the people, Frederick Douglass, he had it way harder when it was illegal for blacks to read in certain parts of the country, where I think it was more difficult to get educated when Malcolm X, who was in prison and found inspiration and was guided and mentored to greater salvation and a greater purpose. Martin Luther King and all these other educated people who had white only libraries and white only bathrooms and, no colors allowed and all this other kinds of stuff. It had it way more difficult than the freedom that we have today. We have the internet. There's not a single white only anything anywhere in America. Now you do have jackholes that are calling the police on people who are just doing their own thing. But, come on, let's get real. Let's get real. The information is out there for us all, and it's essentially free. Everyone has access. Everyone. I'll back up. Most everyone has access. You may not have it at your home, but you can go to McDonald's. You can go to the library. You can go to all these different places that have internet, and you can learn and teach yourself. That's what I am. I am a self-informed citizen. All right. I went to school a little bit. I've had good opportunities here and there, but overall, I have faced racism within my own workplace. I have faced sexism within my own workplace. It hasn't been an easy ride, but here I am, successful, doing well, and with my little baby. Let's see here. I ain't got all tangled up here. In the ghetto, you're either gonna die, play ball, or go to prison. That is another thing. That is another thing that is derivative of the systemic racism, and it's not the Republicans. All right, hey there. Oh, yep, I'm gonna have a mess. Try and get away. He's like, nope, I'm done with this, Dad. All right, so yeah, most definitely. So that's not true. It's not true. When you have kids trying to get educated in school, and you have other kids that are hating on these kids and that beat them up, that just needs to change in the community. We need our elders. We need to change the culture of our community. Improve, change. We need to do something in our community to where we celebrate sports achievement, most definitely. But more than that, education. Education is going to be the key of our freedom. And that's why a certain party has stood in the way of education, because education brings dollars. Dollars brings freedom. That's why there's another people such as AOC and a bunch of her whole camp of people who think like her, Marxists, essentially is what she is. She's not a democratic socialist. There's no such thing as democratic socialist. Democratic socialist is like saying democratic communists. They don't even negate each other. It doesn't make sense. She's a socialist. She's more so a socialist. If you listen to her actual words, she's more so a Marxist than she is a socialist. Everything that's in the 10 steps of the Communist Manifesto is in her speeches. They're trying to dress it up because of the murderous, disgusting past of the communists. It has never worked. Socialism has never worked. Sweden was socialists all through the 70s. It wasn't working out for them. Now they're capitalists. Now they have more billionaires than any other place, more than the United States per capita. They have more billionaires per capita than the United States. And guess what they don't have? They don't have a progressive tax. They tax everybody the same across the board. There's no such thing as minimum wage. The people get together and they make an agreement saying, hey, this is how much we're going to get paid. It's something that the people do themselves. We can take a page out of their book and stop pretending, Bernie Sanders, that they're some kind of socialist country, because they're not. They're a massive welfare state, most definitely. But that's not working for them either. And they're actually trying to figure out ways to privatize their medical system, because through private entities, it is more efficient and better served, and better serves the people. All right, let's see here. And he talks about white supremacy, and you don't know about white supremacy. We're going to talk about a bunch of white supremacy here in a second. I'm hoping that I'm speaking to reach someone who can change things. You, sir, can change things. Just by what you're saying is changing things. So that's a great thing. Here's the thing. Every single individual is responsible for the change. Every single individual who marched with Martin Luther King and who Frederick Douglass inspired, and all the other different Rosa Parks and all the different Malcolm X's and all the different, I have all these different names in my mind, and I need to do better on this, but every single individual made that change. They took personal responsibility for their actions and decided that they were going to defend themselves by any means necessary or to march free of violence. All right? Every single one of those individuals, it wasn't a group effort, it was an individual effort. And they came together on a unifying banner, and that's what we need to do, is come together under a unified banner of peace and freedom by any means necessary. And sometimes it requires reminders. I'll just say that. So that's the basic thing that he was talking about. Thank you, baby, for digging in my beard. Okay. Those are the basic things that he's talking about. Now, here's the thing. We have all of this stuff is a culmination of racist, progressive ideology. All right, it's a combination of misinformation and misdirection, and it comes from every angle. It comes from white elitists who are indoctrinating children in our colleges and now in our high schools, and it's coming from black leaders leaders in our community: Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, Don Lemon, Cory Booker, Kamala Harris. Ugh. So these people, they champion the very ideas that put us black people and poor people, but it's collateral damage. So so here it is. They champion these oppressive ideologies, and it segregates the Black American. The people who are educated. Oh my goodness, the shit that people talked about. Colin Powell and Condoleezza Rice and before Bill Cosby was crazy. Bill Cosby, before he was found out to be a racist, and other. Carlson, what's his name? He ran for the presidency. Carlson. Can't remember. Dr. Carlson. I'll say that. Everybody knows. You should know what I'm talking about. They gave these people crap, calling them Uncle Toms and calling them white apologists and all this other stuff. Call me a white apologist. I will freaking smash your teeth in, bro. With knowledge. With my prayers. With knowledge. Okay? Because you don't know. You don't know. Here's the thing, is they're segregating on purpose the black community. If you vote for Trump, then you're a horrible person and you're not black. Even if you agree with lower taxes, even if you agree with jobs coming back to America, even if you agree, all these things the Democrats can't do. They cannot do these things, all right? These current Democrats, the way that it is set up right now, is they can't do it because they don't believe in economic freedom. And economic freedom is what the progressive idea is solely about. It's taking away from the black people, is economic freedom. Because what changes things, right? The dollar. The dollar changes things, okay? If black people had the money, then things would change and for the better of black people. But programs have been put in place to ensure that black people don't have those powers. Now, a few of them get through the cracks and they get money, and we got Oprahs and we got successful people like Dr. Carlson, even Don Lemon and Cory Booker and all these other people who were poor, and then they're not poor, but who were middle class or poor, and now they're doing well. So now all these people, they have the money, and now they have power, now they have influence and are able to make change. Here's the interesting fact. Every gracious, good-intended, progressive program in America today all have nefarious intentions to stunt the growth and progression of the black man. Black people, in period. Okay? They're purposely put into place. Minimum wage is the biggest perpetrator. It was one of the very first things to start this. The very first thing were gun control laws. The very first thing were gun control laws. Gun control laws were put into place specifically so that blacks could not defend themselves. If you can't defend yourself, then you can have all kinds of oppression happen to you. So laws were put into place purposefully that prevented blacks from owning firearms, and now create a culture that dissuades blacks from owning firearms. Okay, that's the only way that you can protect yourself. That march in what was that, Virginia, where they had all the people rolling around with rifles. You didn't see cops coming up to them and shooting them with pepper spray. Why is that? Number one, it's because it was peaceful. Number two, those people were armed to the teeth. Back in the 60s or 70s, 60s, 70s, 70s, I think it was, when the Black Panthers marched on Capitol, on Sacramento, at the California Capitol building. No one was shooting them up, and that was the height, the alleged height of all this racism. All right? You got a bunch of armed black people rolling up, and no shots were fired. Nobody was arrested. No discourse. No white people trying to do anything crazy. But what did they do? They changed the laws. And the reason why they were able to change the laws is because there was people with dollars who changed the laws. You want to change the laws better to better black people. Number one, get educated in your history so you know who the enemy is. And number two, get them dollars. Those legal dollars. That's super important. All right? Okay. So, the next thing is minimum wage. Minimum wage is the work of the devil, and it is specifically designed to protect the native majority in different places like India and India and Australia and different places like that. It's put into place to protect the native jobs, and then unfortunately, not so much in Australia or South Africa. So what it is designed to do is to protect the white labor force. In America, South Africa, Australia, different places like that. Every place that has a minimum wage, they're trying to protect something. All right? Thomas Sowell, he's an economic genius, economist. He is a historian. He is a philosopher. He is an idol of mine. And basically he says historically lower skill levels did not prevent black males from having labor force participation in higher rates than that of their male counterparts. For every U.S. census from 1890 to 1930, I read that totally wrong, so I apologize. All right. Since then, the general growth of wage fixing arrangements, minimum wage laws, labor unions, civil service, pay scales, etc., has reversed that and made more and more blacks unemployable despite their rising levels of education and skills. It's absolutely and relative to whites. So basically, it goes up. As minimum wage goes up, poor people suffer. Blacks suffer. Immigration, illegal immigrants suffer. Bring suffering to the poorer community and to the black community because they're getting paid under the table because minimum wage is so high. And it's easier for them. It's easier for corporations, for certain businesses to pay people under the table because they could just pay them cash. And that's why we're suffering. So I'm not talking about like legal immigrants. I'm not talking about people who are coming over, who are fleeing their country, diplomatic help. Diplomatic, not immunity, diplomatic, that, you know the word I'm trying to think of. asylum. Goodness gracious, diplomatic asylum. No, we're not talking about those people. Okay, we're talking about just people coming over the border. And everyone who says open borders are great, the housing market has gone up. Because there's more people in America who should not be here because they are here illegally. They have not taken the proper steps to come into America. That's what I'm talking about. That's all I'm talking about. All right. And it's not just from the South America. There's all kinds of people from Europe. There's all kinds of people from China. There's all kinds of people from all over the world. Saudi Arabia, Germany, African countries, all over the world who come here illegally. They come over here on visas and then they stay. Apparently, according to some research, that's how the majority of people come into the country. So minimum wage is to help white people. Affirmative action is probably one of the most nefarious programs that are out there because it was supposed to be a way to help give people that head start so that they can be put up to their white counterparts. How can you explain if America is so racist, people coming from other countries and within less than a generation or less, get themselves on their feet and succeeding, living good lives? Becoming upper middle class to doctors and also because they have the culture to get there. That's what it is. That's what they're doing. They're doing what they can do and promoting community and family and togetherness. They have family. That's the biggest thing. They have family. Okay. And we know Obama to every single person knows this to be a true fact that you are more likely to be successful if you have come from a two-parent home. Okay? Welfare not welfare, affirmative action. The idea that black people cannot be successful without white people throwing them a bone. That's where that comes from. And unfortunately, there was a lot of information that was passed to black leaders that they were hoping that was going to be a good idea. And it's just not a good idea. Because, again, it's success it's opportunity by what? Not the content of your character or your knowledge, but by the color of your skin. The exact opposite of what Martin Luther King wanted. All right? Idealistically wanted. Okay? So now I'm going to a college, and I'm wondering if the only reason why I'm there is black instead of by my qualifications. I'm in a job, and I'm wondering, is it because of my qualifications or because I'm black? And everyone else is wondering that too, and that creates the prejudice. Prejudice is a naturally occurring thing that happens because our DNA has programmed it into our consciousness, and that's fine. And being aware of that is one step to get over that, and so that you are cognizantly saying, hey, that is not a good thought. I shouldn't think that way, so let's move on and let's give this person the benefit of the doubt. But if there was no affirmative action and you saw a black person walking around in some Ivy League school, you'd be like, that dude must have worked his butt off to get here. Not, must be one of those throw you a bone entries. So never been a fan of affirmative action because number one, what it does is even if you are a high performer, it takes away from your accomplishments. Okay? Same thing for women. It takes away from your accomplishments as an individual because the reason why you're here is because you are a certain color or a certain sex. It's ridiculous. If you're qualified, you should go into that system, and that's the way it should be. Dollars speak, and that's why it's 100% true that the person who's the most competent gets the job. Now there is, of course, because of the way that the world works, nepotism and all of this other crap. But at the end of the day, qualified people will get the job. And if you don't get the job, then you slowly build a competing business and you get it there yourself. That's what America was built on. Every single person that is a competing company that's out there is because they couldn't work with somebody. They agitated and they went and did their own thing. All right. welfare, real quick. Let's see if we can keep this under 45 minutes here. Welfare is established fact that children in two-parent homes have a better chance of success. Certain types of welfare and housing assistance comes with the stipulation which prevents the baby daddy, or the father, from living under the same roof. Children from single-parent homes are more likely to have less guidance, sex at a younger age, and commit crimes at a younger age. People who have sex at a younger age, they get pregnant more, and then people at a younger age also commit, go to jail more often in those cases. This makes it harder to get a job and to make money to support themselves or their family. And then those individuals, after they can't get a job because they went to jail, and it makes it so hard, this is the part of the prison complex, is if you go to jail, then it's hard to get a job. If it's hard to get a job, then you end up going back to the same thing because you need to do something, right? And not everybody's built in the way that, like me, like LeBron James, like Michael Jordan, like regular person Joe over here, whereas for me personally, as things get more difficult, I push back harder because I know that an unmovable object, which is the barrier, meets me, the unstoppable force. Well, that unmovable object is going to break, and then I will just continue to move on. Okay, so that's the number one key. You have to train yourself to get that way. It takes a certain level of stubbornness, and luckily, my father helped redirect my stubbornness into a positive thing. When I was growing up, and I had a mother and a father, so that was great. My dad went through so much racism. I've been through it, prejudice and racism. So, but I didn't go through anything I didn't go through half as much as what my dad went through, and my dad didn't go through half as much as his dad went through. So things are progressively getting better when it comes to that. But the chains are still there, and they're in nefarious ways. So it's a cycle. Take into consideration, the recent numbers show that 65% of black families are single parent homes. 65%. Look at the crime rates. Look at the prison rates. Look at the people who are dealing in drugs and who are poor and all. It's a direct result of that. And you see that as there are more single parents in the white communities, also those things have gone up. You go to some poor communities that are white, you see the single parenthoods, you see crime, you see all of those things, females with low self-esteems and daddy issues and all this other stuff. And you see all these things go on also in the white community, in the Latin community, in the Asian community, any community that you have that, it is more prevalent. Now, you have always the exceptions to the rules. All right, and that's a true testament of the stalwartness of the mother or the single parent who helped their children overcome that massive disadvantage. Because of this, 37% of total male prison is a population. Total male prison population is black. Okay, cycle. We're back in the cycle. We got 37% of the prison population is black. They get out, or males anyways, they get out, they try to get a job, it's difficult, they're trying, they end up going back to prison. And what do you have? You don't have the family cornerstone to build that, all right? Let's see where we at here. 34% of arrests are black Americans under 18 years of age. All right? There's a pattern here. Single parent homes created by welfare, because if you live with your dad, then you don't get the welfare that you need. So this welfare needs to be reformed. All right? Here is the kicker. Here's the kicker. It is only 13% of the population that's doing this. So 13% of the population is responsible for this ridiculous amount of numbers. And it's fostered by things such as welfare, affirmative action, and minimum wage and gun control, all right? Planned Parenthood, the most devastating thing to black people in just about all of history in America. All right? Terrible. The main purpose and the only purpose, yeah, a little bit was from women's health. That's what it was disguised under. But the main purpose, if you read the book, The Pivot of Civilization, isn't really about women's health. It's really about to keep the feeble-minded, aka black people, in check from overpopulating and outdoing the good people. She even stated in that book that there are people who are smart for black people who are smart for black people, right? Who understand that they don't want dumb niggers to fucking populate, all right? So it was to keep black people in check. All right. So today, the black community, which makes up 12.5% of the population, 12.5, we have stayed at 13% for 50 years because of these programs that have been put into place, and the deaths and the ravishing of drugs and overdose that has been fostered by the government. All right. They're responsible of 34% of all abortions. Now, here is the kicker on this. Less and less reports of abortions are being reported, which deflates the overall abortion turnout. It was like 1 million in 1995, and then dropped to, was it 800,000? I think 800,000. And then the next year it was about that size, and then it got to a certain point where it was 600,000. It's not because there's less abortions. It's because there's less places reporting them. California, New York, and other places that have massive black populations are not reporting this. So that's why it's less. It's probably more than 34%, but it's being reported less, so the numbers are being deflated. The 19 million black children have been aborted since Roe versus Wade was put into place. And it is mainly to keep the black population from overpopulating, because we know that black people are more violent and they're going to create more crimes. So we better exterminate them before they can even get out there. All right. Sheesh. And then I talked about gun control already. It's the Second Amendment. So you have the government saying, no, you can't protect yourself, or we're going to put guidelines on how you're able to protect yourself. A tyrannical government is going to say, we're going to tell you how you're able to protect yourself. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Back when they made this weapon, this is the thing that people don't understand. Back when they made this bill, the musket was the top of the line technology. Not only that, but you were able to own cannons. Military technology, you were able to own these things. Now these things devastated during the Civil War. And they knew this. And the first thing that they did, when the Civil War was done, niggers can't keep their guns. Take them away. Why? Because they knew that if they continued to shit on black people and they were armed, there would be a second war. That's why from like the 1800s all the way up, they continued to restrict and restrict and restrict and restrict. Because they knew. That's the only reason why Jim Crow was around. That's the only reason why oppression continued to happen, because black people were not allowed to be armed. And the laws of punishment were so much harsher to discourage owning weapons and the means to defend yourself. It's ridiculous. So all of these things are supported by who? Not Republicans. Anybody who supports these supports black slavery. Plain and simple. Anybody who supports any of these programs support black slavery. Because all of these things have fostered the environment that we live in today, and that allows things like the George Floyd thing to happen. Because I tell you what, if a bunch of armed people walked up there who were open carrying legally, and said, yo, man, get off that dude's neck. That's ridiculous. You know what? It's going to happen. You got 20 people around you saying, get off that dude's neck who are legally carrying firearms. Guess what? You're going to get off that dude's neck because you're going to start a revolt. Huh? It's plain and simple, people. We as individuals need to get that buying power, because that is what controls the government, right? That's what controls the market. We have to take control of that. We have to increase our buying power in order to take our power. We are the individuals who will give ourselves freedom. And we have to continue to vote in people who have the best interests of American values. Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, equality for all, the free market. Those are essential rights, because that allows me as an individual to thrive and make decisions so that I can succeed and not depend on a government whose sole purpose is to, well, the federal government's sole purpose is to defend the rights of Americans from foreign and domestic terrorists and countries and entities. It's the sole reason why they exist. They've overextended their powers and their own rights, and they have started to slowly leached away our right of speech, our right to defend ourselves, our right to property, our right to life, and slowly fostered the extinction of black males. Thank you for listening. If you made it this far, you're a trooper. And this will also be on my YouTube channel. But it's just information out there. It's information. All this stuff is easy to find. I found all this stuff. I got to post this real quick, and then I'll slowly change things. Can you turn that back on, please? I'll slowly change things and get things going back on. Get things going. So it's getting dark. It's getting long. I think if I hit 45 minutes, it's a movie or something like that. I don't know. Anyways, so all this information is out there. All you got to do is look up racist minimum wage. It'll tell you. You look up Planned Parenthood. You'll see Margaret Sanger's book, The Pivot of Civilization, is just the first one. It's ridiculous. Welfare, the same thing. White privilege is definitely a myth. It's, you know, you may be treated differently, most definitely, but come on, man, let's wake up. Like, share, subscribe, whatever you want to do, whatever. If you agree with me, do the same thing, because the information needs to get out. We need to start educating ourselves and actually becoming woke. All right? I got to change my baby. He pooped. Peace.